This video is a product review of the Poinsettia Place Suite. Actually, this is a pretty sweet suite. There's a lot of really fun stuff in here. The designer paper, which I'll show you in just a minute, some specialty paper, which is really fun, of course the stamp set and the dies, and then we've got these embellishments that are supposed to be like the flower center. Actually, they're pretty heavy, and of course they're very bulky. So I was surprised at the weight in my hand. The cool thing is, though, you can color these things with the blends. So if you don't want them to be white, you can make them yellow or any other color that you desire. And then the other thing is they're pretty easy to adhere to something, because with these 3 flat surfaces on it, you can put 3 glue dots on there and that'll hold it real securely to your project. And then the other product that's in this suite is this sheer ribbon, which is pretty nice. I like it. It ties really nicely and it looks pretty on a project. All right, so let's take a look at the stamps and the matching dies over here. This is pretty much of a mess trying to have you figure out what's going on over here, except to point out some of them are framelits and some of them are just dies. So this is a framelit that's going to cut out this complete flower. If you want to build layers, then you're looking at these pieces over here. I do a pen to mark around it so I know how to put it back on the sheet. So these 3 stamps go with, and here I'm going to pull out what I've already die cut, these 3 sizes, and then there's a 4th little one that there's no stamp for, but this one can just be a layer on top. For foliage, this is going to be a framelit that will cut out that piece, and then there's another foliage die that doesn't have a stamp that goes with it. 2 different size leaves. And then we have the alligator. I haven't made anything with that, but that definitely looks like an alligator. But here's the thing. If you stamp it, look at how this is. If you stamp it, you can cut out that image. But if you don't want to stamp it, you can also emboss it. So each of these 3 sizes, not that one, but each of these 3 sizes and the 2 leaves, they have a piece that will emboss the shape as well as cut it out, which was very interesting. All right, can you see the embossing that's on here? You see those lines? And then over here on these pieces as well, and even on this tiny one down here, these will all emboss the shape. So you're going to see that on the projects here. All right, let's get this out of the way. All right, let's start with looking at the designer paper. I love the fact that Stampin'Up lets us know what colors coordinate with it, so you're not trying to guess which green is which on there. In this pack, you've actually got 2 different designs that are going to be the poinsettias. See how this one has a little bit of a yellower back with a pine cone, and this one has a more pale back with the pine boughs instead of the pine cones. On this one here, once again, anytime you've got a framelit that goes with something that's in a stamp and something similar in the paper, you're always going to wonder and suspect if maybe it would cut it out. So it will cut out this flower, but these flowers are not all the same. So it's only going to cut out 1, maybe 2 on this sheet. This one down here, I actually just fussy cut the one that's missing from that spot. So you have these 2 that are the poinsettias, then you've got a colored one, well then you've got this spray, and once again this framelit will cut out some of the sprays if you want to. And I've got a card with it that I made with die cutting that. And then we've got a holly over here, and then we've got some green poinsettias, and we've got some pine cones and pine needles, and on the other side we've got more generic pattern sorts of things that would just make nice patterns on a project, including we've got another wood grain. I always love the ones that have wood grain. In addition to the pattern paper, we also have this plush specialty paper that is like flocked. It's like that velveteen. It doesn't rub off on your hands or anything. And once again, the framelits will cut out the shapes on here. So once again, the framelits can cut out a shape from this plush velvet, and they can also cut out some of the foliage. And the leaves. So I'm going to start by showing you two samples right now. This is one where I used part of this, the trellis shape, just as a background piece. These were die cut. This is just on regular cardstock. And this I actually fussy cut instead of using the die on it. And here's that, that sheer ribbon. This one, I used my markers to color that plush. It worked okay. It tends to absorb real fast into the plush and velveteen, and so it kind of bleeds a little bit, but it's definitely doable. A couple of things to note on this one. So this is that new brushed opera oil. I used the shimmery crystal effects on the holly leaves here. And this is actually from the Christmas Gleaming set, this holly. And I just have to show you this because I was so impressed. I hope that shows up on the camera, but in real life, this Wink of Stella on the dark background, it's like, wow, it just pops in real life here. But anyway, the thing from this Poinsettia suite that was on this card was the fact that I colored the plush specialty paper. As long as we're talking specialty paper, and the fact that this does emboss, it is, I think, if you got to run it through a couple times to make it deep enough to show on the regular cardstock, but here it is on that specialty papers. The red foil shows up really nicely there, and here it is on the velveteen paper. And again, when it gets squished in there, it really changes the light reflection on the surface of that velveteen, and so it looks real pretty there. So I've got two more cards to show you for comparison. This one is just on the regular cardstock, and then this one is on the red velvet. Now this one really pops, I think, for two reasons. One, just because it's a darker red, and then because the velveteen, when it's squished down like that, it really does take that embossing very, very nicely. And then you'll notice that this is that new embossing folder pack, the Wrapped in Texture, which has two different designs. One is this little pattern with four little dots, and then this one is more of like a basket weave sort of thing. So anyway, I used the two of them on the top and bottom. If you got my trade card number 2, you got this one. And then I didn't point out with the dies, but you also have the center of the flower. One of them cuts little holes, and then the other is a base piece. So here it is with the one with the holes in gold, with the black one as the base piece behind it. And as long as we're talking specialty paper, here's one more sample done with both the red and the green foil. And that turned out nice when it's embossed. All right, are we ready to look at some poinsettia cards? This one is just stamped, although if I was doing this with customers, I did do masking on this one in order to get these pine boughs to appear like they came from behind. And then if I want to wow my customers, I take it up a step. So for this one, I sponged behind the pine boughs. This is just colored with a marker, but here these are actually regular pearls colored with the blends. And then I added some ribbon to it. So two cards, a casual and an avid. I don't know. And then here's similar design, but again, showing a little bit of a technique. When you have a large image, you can go back and do some specialty things like this panel card. This one is just the die cuts. Pine boughs are behind it, but sticking two of the holly leaves out from the side, it makes a real nice layout on the paper there, and then there's your embellishment. Even that tiny, tiny die all by itself can make a real nice horizontal layout. So it's horizontal up here at the top of the card. And then I started doing some specialty things. I love this color combination of the Rococo with the Mary Merlot. I was trying something new. I'm not sure that I was really thrilled with this particular card, but I did color the embellishments here with the blends. And then this is tear and tape, and you can see where it's crossed, where the two pieces cross each other. It kind of makes a little square up in the corner. After the fact, I decided that was okay. It wasn't my intention going forward, but I just put tear and tape down and then sprinkled it with the gold embossing powder and heat set it, and it turned out real interesting. I just didn't want to use a great big piece of the gold foil, use that big of a piece to layer the thing. But yeah, I do like the way that thing turned out. And then this one is embossed again with that evergreen embossing folder behind there. No sentiment on this one, it's just the layers. And this is that gold trim that is part of another ribbon combo pack, the one with a big wide shaded spruce ribbon. And then here is the leaves. It doesn't even have to be a Christmas card because look how pretty they are in fall colors. And then this is that spray done in crumb cake and in vellum. I have two more to show. You know that I participate in some mail-in trades, so these are two that I got from other people. This one showcases that designer paper, and then you can see on here the embossing on that leaf. I'm hoping that it shows up on there. So this, she did use the embossing on it. The white petals, she did not use the embossing, but the holly leaves behind, she did. This stamp set, or this sentiment does come in the stamp set. This was, who was this? Sandy Miller. That little die makes a nice center. Now for this one, she used the blue gems that are actually part of the snowflake set. This is silver embossed, so she only embossed the top layer, heat embossing. The two vellum layers are simply die cut, and then that final blue layer down on the bottom, that one has also, she used the embossing dies on it, so you can see the veining on the leaf. And then this is part of that snowflake suite also. And then this is a real nice way to treat a sentiment. She had to fussy cut it to fussy cut that out, but that's nice. This was Nancy Forsberg. So I hope this gives you some ideas for things that you can do with this Poinsettia Petals set. Honestly, this was my last video because I had so many ideas. I just kept going, oh, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. And I still have about 10 more things that I want to try making with this set. I really had fun with this, and I hope this inspired you to go play with it and have fun with it too.